So I usually put spoiler tags whenever I review games. So spoilers for Mario Kart World? Is that a thing? Can you spoil Mario Kart? Well, this is weird. I don't normally review these types of games. Taking a look at my channel, I tend to focus on big RPGs. That lets me take deep dives into the ins and outs of all the characters and the story and the world and the game mechanics. You don't really have all of that in a Mario Kart game. I feel like I can't even do my normal overly dramatic opening because there's not too much for me to show during the intro. With Mario Kart, there's really only a few things you can look at. The driving mechanics and the tracks. I guess you can throw in the items and characters as well, but they don't really have a ton of impact on much that the game has to offer. That's why this is going to be by far the shortest review I've ever made, but still, it felt like one that I wanted to do. I mean, it's been 11 goddamn years since the original Mario Kart 8 released. Obviously, yeah, you've got Deluxe and the insane booster pass that came along with it, but it feels like we've been playing 8 for an eternity. Naturally, that means Mario Kart World kinda has to deliver. We've all got sky-high expectations, and considering it's really the first modern game releasing with an $80 base price tag, unless of course you get the bundle, it needs to further evolve the formula. So with those things out of the way, let's talk about the big selling point of this game, the titular world. For the first time ever, Mario Kart is open world. So, you know, Mario Forza Horizon. This is something that I honestly never thought I would see in a Mario Kart game. At the foundational level, the open world is pretty good. I love how the environments progressively shift from one biome to the next. They obviously weren't going to put an ice and volcano track right next to each other, but the biome blending is really seamlessly done. Each track feels like its own little tourist destination. It makes it seem like this huge island is like an Olympic caliber event in the world of Mario. Like, everybody gathers here every so often to watch all these different races. Like, it's a celebration of motorsport. And just like the real world Olympics, you've got rivals like Mario and Bowser putting aside their squabbles to throw banana peels at each other. It may sound like an overly serious way to put it, but that's the way I felt when driving around. You've also got all these normal pedestrian cars going about their business. That's nothing new, we've had many tracks like this in the past. However, in World, they aren't confined to each track that you're currently racing. Many will turn and just head off in a different direction whenever there's an intersection. I can't imagine just being a normal, everyday Toad trying to get to work, and then you have to deal with lightning and bullet bills and a snowman throwing fireballs at you. But like I said, the tracks feel like real tourist destinations that are woven into the natural landscape. Nintendo did their best to integrate new and old tracks throughout the landscape, and I feel like they struck a great balance between bringing back oldies and giving us some of the new, awesome ones. However, the highlight of the free roam mode is the optional goodies you can collect throughout it. My favorite of which are the P-switches. These act as a sort of bite-sized challenges for you to take on throughout the open world. They're basically like the shrines from Breath of the Wild if you were in a car. Some of them are easy and some of them are actually pretty tricky, but I love how they test your mastery over the game's mechanics. I'm pretty sure all of them are timed, so you just can't dawdle while doing these. However, because there are item boxes littered throughout the world, you can just fish for strong items like a star or a golden mushroom and then bring them into each of the challenges. It really trivializes most of the challenges if you can just mushroom your way through a shortcut. But I understand that this game wasn't designed with myself in mind. At its heart, Mario Kart is a kid's game that everyone can enjoy, but Nintendo is always going to cater towards them and not somebody like me. You've also got the Peach coins, stacks of coins, and the question mark blocks. These are basically just little hidden goodies that are scattered throughout the world and you have to find. Unfortunately, there's a massive oversight with all of the collectibles in free roam. There's no real way to track them. Yeah, you've got the counter in the corner of the map, but with the exception of the question mark blocks at each track, there's no real way to see which ones you've collected. There's no way to see which ones you haven't done either. Even just a small little icon showing that you finished a P-switch or a check mark where you found the Peach coins would have made a massive difference. I don't know why Nintendo omitted this. It seems like a really odd choice. I also think this mode doesn't really lend itself super well to exploration. Since there's no way to see where your objectives are, it can kind of be difficult to just find them. The camera speed makes it really hard to look around, and since there's always a million things flying in your face, it's not exactly easy to take your eyes off the road and examine the landscape. It doesn't help that a lot of these things you're looking for are about at your height, so any trees or buildings or hills really obscure your view. I think if the minimap were more zoomed out and maybe gave you a hint when you're close to something, that would help. Even just a jingle when you were getting close to an objective would make a huge difference. It doesn't need to show up as a huge glowing icon, but just something would really help. So that's the world, the big selling point. But what about the reason we all used to flock to Mario Kart games? The racing. I really like racing on the tracks. World adds a ton of fun mechanics that really shake up the formula. The two main things being wall riding and rail grinding. These add a nice sense of verticality that the series didn't really have up until now. I liken it to being able to climb nearly every surface in Breath of the Wild. It opens up so many of the tracks, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And even though the game has been out for, a month? There's so much crazy tech going on that the world records are already insane. I'm not someone who is super into time trials or competitive kart, but you've got to admit that things like this are ridiculous. And again, the game has only been out for a month or so. The new tracks are a ton of fun, and the newest version of Rainbow Road is just so amazing. It's incredible. Not only from a racing point of view, but also just an aesthetic point of view. Unfortunately, I do have a lot of problems with the changes they made to the Grand Prix. I think it's a cool idea to race from track to track in theory, but in practice, it's boring. The sections between the tracks are significantly worse. One of the reasons I always loved Mario Kart were the tracks, the crazy drifting, the jumps, the clutch item pulls. These in-between sections don't have any of that. Some of them, I'm not exaggerating here, are almost literally straight lines. And because these sections do have to seem like semi-realistic roads, they don't offer nearly any variety. I could excuse this if there were grind rails everywhere or interlocking vertical sections that you could trick between, but there's just none of that. They're just roads, because they have to serve as that for the free roam and the new Knockout Tour, which I do actually really enjoy. It's fun doing one continuous race throughout all the different locales, and that's where they should have kept these in-between sections. Including them in the Grand Prix just makes it feel redundant. I don't know if they didn't want to repeat sections or they were dead set on staying with the traditional 8 different Grand Prix, but they should have kept these things separate. And it takes what is usually such a fun thing in single player and turns roughly half of it into waiting to get to the next course. Or maybe if they let us do 3 laps on each course instead of just 1. They really didn't need to add these to the Grand Prix, and it's frustrating to go through them again and again. I'm someone who likes to 3-star all of the Grand Prix on all the difficulties. Getting through these sections on 50cc is just so boring. The karts are mind-numbingly slow, and it takes forever to slog through these massive straightaways. I know that there are many people who won't do this and will immediately gravitate towards 150cc, but it's something to keep in mind. I was hoping that, because of the open nature of Mario Kart World, there would be some cool moments when you drive through the courses backwards. Unfortunately, there isn't much of this. Nintendo did keep in mind that you might do this, and you can pretty much drive the courses in whichever direction you want, but that's about it. They did, of course, expand the races to 24 players. This makes the middle of the pack infinitely more chaotic, and I am absolutely here for it. The mid-race madness has always been so much fun. However, the changes they made to some of the items toned this down, and is too much in my opinion. The bullet bill. Oh, the bullet bill, man. Look how they massacred my boy. The new items are fine. None of them really are that game-changing. I guess you might be able to do some cool things with the feather, but there's nothing crazy added here. Just a few final thoughts as I wrap up this baby review. You gotta love the soundtrack. I mean, the Mario Kart 8 OST kind of set the sound for the series going forward, but man, Nintendo really just let the musicians go ham on the improv. The unlockables feel a little off. The stickers are fine and all, but the costumes are not balanced between the cast, like even remotely. For example, why does Mario get like 10 different unique outfits, but DK is stuck between his default and one measly additional one? It also seemed like unlocking the extra characters basically came down to you winning the Kamek lottery in races. I don't feel like I'm earning characters or carts through my race wins, but rather just mindlessly doing whatever. Obviously, the characters don't make a huge difference here, but it can be frustrating. I'm sure there are others who are still fruitlessly grinding to unlock their favorite fish bone. I will say that the characters that are here are really charming. All of the weird, goofy enemies are a great addition, and there are so many fun little animations that not only make the characters feel alive, but also make the game ooze with personality. All of the small little changes they made to things like idle animations on the character select screen, the animation that plays when you get hit by different items, the way your cart can bounce around when you mash ZR on the start line. These things don't have a massive impact on the overall experience, but they add that extra little flavor to this game. I was a little sad to see some things leave the series. The anti-grav sections are gone. I guess wall riding basically replaced that. But I thought it was a fun addition that served as a fun change of pace. You also can't customize your carts anymore. It's just a character and cart selection. You can't choose your glider and wheels. And I wish they would have kept this. I don't really understand why they got rid of it. It added that extra little bit of customization, and I'm sad that it got scrapped. A really big issue that I've seen online is that you can't really choose a track when you're playing with randoms. If you're in a private lobby, this doesn't apply, but you can really only choose a random race. Picking a different track forces you to play the in-between sections instead of just racing on the course. This really should be fixed in an update, and it's really not acceptable that it made it into the full release. Alright, so this is me in post. Literally less than 24 hours after I recorded this, Nintendo updated Mario Kart World. The random track selection in online now includes the intermission sections. So basically, online has devolved into it being like 75 to 80% of the portions of the map in between the tracks. I don't understand this. This is such a stupid move. I don't get it. Oh, that really, really, really hurts the game. If they would just let you choose the tracks that you want to choose, it would be a really amazing game, but that's a really, really, really big detractor and red flag for this game. But I'll go ahead and continue with the rest of the review as it was written, but keep that in mind that, at least as of now, when I'm recording, when is it? It's June 26th. The online, unless you're in a private lobby, it's not ideal, to say the least. So those are my thoughts on Mario Kart World. Obviously, it's Mario Kart. For most of us, it's the game we buy so that we always have something to play with our friends. It's not a massive RPG that will take you hundreds of hours to complete the main story, nor is it an ultra-competitive fighting game that is a true test of skill. Mario Kart, again, for most of us, is just the good, simple fun that we all know and love. World accomplishes this. There are a lot of changes, like with the Grand Prix, that I really don't like. However, I think it's a really interesting step for the series to take. Nintendo has kind of settled into their open world era. The success of Breath of the Wild is really being felt in all of Nintendo's big franchises. I just wish there was a little more old school Mario Kart left here. While the world is fun, shout out Monolith for making another banger map, I feel like Mario Kart is inherently designed to not work very well for exploration. Despite all of this criticism, it's just a fun game. It's a fun game that I'll enjoy with my friends because that's what Mario Kart is. Mario Kart World is alright. It's not great, it's not awful, but I'm gonna play the hell out of it, especially with my friends. Thanks for watching.